Welcome you back to the Patrick Netherton Show right here on 1130 The Tiger. He's Roger Santon. I'm Patrick Netherton. Return to the Mac, which means we must be talking to the great J-Mac, Josh McDaniel at Northwestern State, the Director of Marketing and Social Media, who joins us now. And correct me if I'm wrong, J-Mac, this was also your walk-up music?
Yes, it was. That was my walk-up music in high school baseball.
I love it. Yeah.
When I was in kindergarten, my kindergarten class, there were 6 of us named Josh. And so at that point, I became Josh Mack, and Josh Mack turned into just Mack by the time I got to high school. And when that song came out, and it was like, it was fate. It was written in the stars for that to be my walk-up.
Yes, that's Mark Morrison, as I recall.
Yes.
Yeah, and all I remember is I would go to Rangers games, and it would be Mark McLemore had Return of the Mac as his walk-up music, and then I believe it was Juan Gonzalez that had the Darth Vader theme as his walk-up music, and I thought that was 2 of the coolest things that I'd ever seen. So that's pretty awesome.
You know me, coming from baseball, I love some walk-up.
Sure.
Music.
For those that don't know, J-Mac used to run the music out at Brown Stroud Field for Northwestern State, and got himself forcibly removed from a game one time. Would you like to tell that story, J-Mac?
Sure. It was the 9th inning. We had a play at the plate, and our runner was clearly safe. Everyone in the stadium except for the home plate umpire knew it. Our head coach at the time, Lane Burrows, came running out, was just furious. And he had always told me, if I'm on the field talking to umpires, I want you to play some music so the fans can't hear what I'm saying. So he comes running out. Everybody's just booing. So I played Three Blind Mice.
Mm-hmm.
No words, just the music.
Just the
and third.
Yeah.
It was almost like a mid-eye,
Right.
And the third base umpire, Tim Henderson, comes running, red-faced, and just screams, "You're out of here!" And so Burrows had already been run up, and so we were all just confused. And he pointed up to me, and thankfully, the music was a 5-minute loop of Three Blind Mice. So he kicked me out of the box, and I just left it playing, and I left the box. And Doug Ireland took over for PA, and they had to actually call me back into the press box because Doug didn't know how to turn the music off.
Well, sure. And he wouldn't.
We went, we went on to win the game on a walk-off, and that made it even sweeter. But, yeah, I feel like I'm probably the only PA in Southland baseball history to ever get tossed out.
Hey, wear it like a badge of honor, my friend. And you've gone from there.
Absolutely.
Where you were doing marketing for the athletic program, you went back to Louisiana Tech for a bit, handled their stuff, and then you came back as the director of marketing, not just for athletics, but for the entirety of the university. And correct me if I'm wrong, HESM is higher education social media, is that right?
It is.
Okay.
Yes,
I guessed on that, so I'm glad to know I was right.
Yeah, that's correct.
All right, so just kind of give me an idea of what does, people hear social media director and they think,
Sure.
oh, you're just sitting there looking at Twitter the whole time and that's all you do. But also you're marketing director as well, so you kind of have a dual role. But kind of tell me what it means to run a social media brand, as it were, as Northwestern State is.
Sure. I'm responsible for our 3 main social media channels, which are Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Each of those we use as marketing tools. We have strategies for each of the different platforms. With our messaging, we don't use the same messaging on Facebook as we do on Twitter, and then as we do on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
So there is huge strategies behind it, but it also not as just a marketing tool, but as a listening tool. I mean, it says it in its name, social media, and we try to be that. We try to be social. We try to listen. We try to respond as necessary. We try to have fun with it. One of my claims to fame, and I'll retire on this one, was a few years ago. I guess it was 2 years ago now. SFA, who is our big rival in sports, it was a hot summer, and they said, "What do you guys do to cool off?" So from the NSU Instagram account, I said we use Chief Cato is shade.
Mm-hmm.
A little double entendre there is, we use the shade of him, and then I'm throwing shade at you.
Right.
So, we like to have fun with it. A lot of higher education and social media is just kind of stuffy, and that's not our brand. That's not my personality. So we try to have fun. We share the awful picture of the Vic the Demon Rougarou picture as much as we can because it's so beautifully awful. But yeah, it's a give and take. We don't want to be just a megaphone. We want to be a listening piece as well.
Well, and that's you mentioned, a lot of university social media is kind of stuffy, and it's just, hey, here's our press releases, that kind of thing. But in today's day and age, J-Mac, and you obviously have been in as this transformation is sort of taken place, you're seeing, kids are no longer just, hey, show up to college and do college now with social media being as prevalent as it is. These kids, this is how they're growing up. This is how they interact with each other. This is how they interact with the world. And so if you're not being responsive and you're not understanding what they're dealing with and what memes they're liking, and if you can't find a way to make it fun and interesting, then they're just going to ignore you.
Yeah, absolutely. I started in social media in 2009. So I've kind of grown up with it as far as in my professional life. Mm-hmm. And, kids, they're comfortable sending a direct message to say, hey, I have this question about my application process. Can you help me? And it's nice to be able to meet them where they are. In the past, either there wouldn't have been an answer or the message would have been, send an email to this person. Well, if they wanted to send an email, that's what they would have done. Right. They are reaching out to you. And so I try to be as responsive as I possibly can and be helpful because it's where they are. And if we're going to continue to grow our enrollment like we have previous years, we've got to meet them where they are.
Talking to Josh McDaniel, our boy J-Mac, who handles marketing and social media for Northwestern State. All right, so on a typical day then, how much I'm going to ask this question in reverse. How much are you not looking at social media, not looking at Twitter, not looking at Instagram? I mean, how much can you actually get away from that stuff and not just have it there, ready to be responsive when you need to be?
When I'm asleep?
Yeah.
That's, I say it partly in jest, but it's true. At work, I have two monitors. One of them is a dedicated monitor to social media. I've got our Twitter feed up. I keep Instagram up, and I keep our Facebook page up. That monitor is completely dedicated to watching social media. And then, of course, in the in-between hours when I'm not at work, my iPhone stays beside me. And so I'm always within reach. So I've got a soon-to-be 4-month-old and a 5-year-old. Mm-hmm. So I try at home to do my best to have my phone beside me, but not be on it when they're awake, just because, family is important to me, and I don't want to be glued to my device. But when they go to bed, I'll monitor for a while. I'll monitor right before I go to bed. And it literally is the first thing I do when I wake up. I wake up, turn my alarm off, and then I check all of our notifications just to make sure the world hasn't burned down from 11 to 4.
Right. You mentioned that the opportunities that it provides you, being able to stay responsive to the students that are there, and obviously you want to be responsive to your public, your alums, mm-hmm. all of that stuff. But it really does give you an avenue to create dialogue with the student body, make them feel like they are connected in a different way to the university. But that also brings challenges, and we've seen that a couple of times. Like we've seen it at a lot of universities around the country. There was an mm-hmm. incoming student who got on social media and said something inappropriate. You have to respond to that. There was the girl that was at the Trump conference down in Arizona, said something that a lot of people took offense to. Mm-hmm. A lot of people figured out where she went to school, starts tagging you in that or tagging the school in that. Walk me through when one of these things happen and okay, we've got to craft a response to this. We have to have a way to answer this because rightly or wrongly, we are being held responsible for this. Walk me through kind of what that strategy is like. Who are you talking to craft a response? Mm-hmm. Who's involved in the process? Kind of walk me through how that happens.
Sure. Usually I'll see the fire will start on social media, and we'll start either getting public notifications, direct messages, and I'll send an email to our communications team, to our vice president of external affairs. If it's a student or prospective student, I also will copy in the dean of students. And it goes from there to our crisis communication, and then we're in constant communication with each other. This is what's going on. A lot of times, our president, Chris Maggio, will get involved, and he'll call me. We'll have conversations, and we'll just talk through things and manage it together as a team. I kind of see myself as almost like the doorkeeper to the brand. It's my job to be out there in front, taking the arrows to protect the brand and to alert everyone else when there's a problem. And that's why it's so important to me to monitor, because we want to be on top of things. And as soon as something goes down, we start that ball rolling on how we can craft a response.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Bobby Bowden famously said, and I love to quote this. Bobby Bowden famously said that athletics is the front porch of a university. It's a lot of the way that people that's what they see. But kind of in today's day and age, social media wasn't around when Bobby Bowden was saying this. Now, in today's day and age, social media is almost your front porch, if not a digital front porch to your university. So people are going to more often than not get your response from there. It's not going to be they're not looking at a newspaper or something like that. The response that they're going to see is going to come off of social media.
Sure, absolutely. The days of just waiting to either send out a press release or to not say anything at all and hope it goes away, those are gone. And so I'm fortunate to work with an administration who really understands that and understands the need of getting out in front of things and being as transparent as we can. There are HIPAA things and I guess FERPA is probably more appropriate in this since we're not really dealing with medical issues.
Right.
But there are things, we can't put students out there. We can't put employee information out there. So we try to be as transparent as we legally can, because that's what, at the end, going back to people understand fake. If you're fake on social media, they're going to call you out for it. So we try to be as transparent as absolutely possible within the confines of the legal system. You did
one of the great sort of recrafting of your logos that I've seen. If you haven't seen it, at NSU LA is the main Twitter feed for Northwestern State. And JMac actually redid the logo, and instead of it being, NSU with the columns and everything, you put sixes in between to basically socially distance your logo from itself, which I thought was brilliant. I thought that was beautiful.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's little things like that I appreciate, that you appreciate, because, it's just little fun things like that we try to do. When there are memes that we feel like, meme trends that, we feel like we can get in on, I try to do them just because, like I said, we just try to have some fun with it. And then, some of them I'll think, man, this tweet is going to blow up, and it might get like 2 likes.
Yeah.
So, a lot of it is strategy. We have a content calendar where it's very well thought out, very well planned. And then other, spur of the moment, let's throw it at the wall and see if it sticks. If it doesn't, oh well, let's move on to the next.
You not only are you're the director of marketing for the university and social media for the university, but you were in the chair of being in that same spot for athletics at one point. Mm-hmm. I'm curious, organizationally, are they underneath your umbrella in terms of the overall marketing for the university, and how much are y'all discussing things when? Because there's a lot of folks that have access to the social media channels in athletics. Coaches, assistant coaches will often have them. The SIDs will have them. The folks in the main athletic department have them. What's the conversation like there, where you're discussing some of the things that maybe athletics wants to put out?
We kind of treat athletics is not under my umbrella.
Okay.
On a direct basis. We kind of treat them no different than the science department, mm-hmm. or, hospitality management, tourism. They're kind of their own entity. And if I have suggestions, I'll reach out to them and make them, or if I see something that may be construed as inappropriate, I'll just say, hey, might want to take that down. But for the most part, it runs itself the same way with multiple counts across the university. We've got the School of Business who realize, hey, we've got to be on social media because we can use it as a recruiting tool. So we have a lot of departments and schools and colleges that have their own social media where I supervise it, I monitor it, but I'm not in direct control as far as posting the content or anything like that.
Do you ever get on and are just absolutely flummoxed by a meme or a trend or something like that? I mean, you and I aren't spring chickens. You're obviously much more connected than I am. And look, kids with the TikToks and all that stuff, I hate to sound super old when I say that. But, there's a lot of stuff that goes on. There's a lot of stuff that kids today are memeing and doing that are just completely out of my purview when it comes to that stuff. How do you get times where you're going, I don't even know what this means, like, and how do I maybe jump in on this, but I don't even know how to start.
Yeah, and that's where I have a team of students. When we're not in a pandemic and they're all at home taking online classes, we have a team of social media ambassadors, and that's where they come in really, really handy because, these are kids who are sophomores in college who are in the thick of the trends and understand why things are cool. And I tell them that all the time. I'll be 39 in July. I'm not cool, but you guys are. And so a lot of times they'll come to me with ideas and we'll run with them because, if a sophomore is telling you, hey, we need to do this, people would like it, we'll listen. But I also have the ability to run things by them, things as small as an Instagram caption. I'll say, hey, I think this is really funny. I want to put this out as our Instagram caption. What do you think? For the most part, thankfully, they'll tell me no if something's not funny or if it's not the good kind of cheesy. And so to have that sounding board, to have a pulse of today's youth, as us old folks like to say, is really great for the university, and they're a huge resource for us.
Do you so every time I go back and talk to students, I go back to Ouachita Baptist, my alma mater, and I'll speak to communications classes every year. And I inevitably, the first thing I ask them is, do you know who Huey Lewis and the News are? And almost to a man, they say no. And that I always feel terrible about that. And, these kids are actually, they were born after I graduated college. Like we're to that point now. Do you do you sometimes quiz these kids on things that some of your older things and just pray that they actually know what you're talking about?
That has happened quite a few times in my office. I'll say something and I'll just get blank looks. Like, wait, y'all don't know about. And so, we'll hit YouTube and I get to educate them. That definitely does happen to me. I speak every year to some classes as well, and also our freshman connectors, who are essentially our summer orientation staff for incoming freshmen. And so I've kind of had to modify some of the things I say and some of the references just because they were going over their heads and they didn't understand. It's definitely, I definitely see that on a daily basis. But, that's part of the reason why I love working on a college campus because, like I said, I'll be 39 in July, but I don't feel that old.
Right.
Because I'm around, 18 to 22-year-olds on a daily basis.
Well, I'll tell you this.
I'm hip to pop culture.
Yeah, you don't look more than 37 or 38, so, good for you.
That. Well, I found my first gray hair when I was in second grade.
Yeah.
So I've had that going for me my whole life.
Yeah, I'm with you. I started turning gray when I was in high school, so I certainly feel your pain on that. Talking to Josh McDaniel, the marketing director and social media director for Northwestern State. All right, so obviously we're in kind of an age of social distancing, your online classes, all of this stuff. Campus has kind of been shut down for a large part of this. What are the unique challenges that has presented with trying to stay up with what's going on? I mean, look, the Black Lives Matter, the protests, all of that stuff, everyone is trying to be supportive, especially in a university setting where you have diversity. That what are the challenges of that, trying to sort of keep up with what's going on, but also make sure that the university is responding appropriately to things that are happening.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I feel like we have a responsibility as a university to educate our students and to be the voice of all of our students. And we try really hard to do that. When the pandemic hit, I guess we kind of shut things down March 16th, which coincidentally was the day that my little girl was born. So I was monitoring social media outside the operating room while they were giving my wife her epidural before they called me in because things were shutting down. People were getting, notifications that this is going down, this is happening. So during the first few months of the pandemic, it was really tough for me as a social media manager and a marketing director because a lot of our content that we put out through the year relies on events on campus, relies on things going on. And I didn't have that anymore. I didn't have pictures of students doing said event to put on Instagram. And so it was everything we put out on social media, we had to create ourselves. In my office, it's a team of 3. We have our project manager, Nina Carter, my assistant director and videographer, Tyler Ward, and it's me. And all 3 of us were working from home, and we were just getting email after email because faculty and staff are also at home, sitting on social media, seeing, well, this university did this. I think that would be a good idea if we did this. And so my inbox was just blowing up with all these different ideas, and it just got to be overwhelming. I had an infant, a newborn at home, a very active 5-year-old trying to work from home. And so it was just kind of got crazy, and it really just wore me out. And I didn't feel like I could ever check out. I just felt burned out. And so I just had to take little breaks here and there and just learn I'm going to work during work time, do what I can, and at 5 o'clock, I'll just come back the next morning. So it's been tough.
Yeah.
But our students are great. And so, working with them and once again, running ideas by them, we got through it, and we're going to get through the rest of it together. We serve a great university community. Our alumni, our students, our stakeholders at NSU are amazing people. And, I talk about when I meet with prospective students and their parents, I went to LSU for a year. I went to Tech. I worked at Tech. And at NSU, family is not just an abstract concept that we talk about. It's really tangible. I feel like anybody at NSU is going to do anything they can to help students, to help other faculty members. And you don't get that at a lot of universities. And it's really special. And I feel like that makes my job easier as marketing director and a social media manager.
No better way to leave it than that, my friend. Look, don't get yourself kicked out of anything anymore. All right, try to stick around.
I'm going to try not to.
Yeah, I don't want you playing. If Doug walks in, don't play "Short People Got No Reason" by Randy Newman, and don't go around.
I'm going to file that one back.
By the way, speaking of, this is for you. We had Chris Maggio on, president of Northwestern State. We had him on a couple of weeks ago. And I don't remember what we were talking about, but we brought up Doug Ireland's name, and Chris Maggio referred to him as our little friend Doug Ireland. So I'm just saying, if you want to use that as an official title for our buddy Doug, the president of Northwestern State put it out there.
Maybe we'll have to update his sign in the press level at Southern Stadium to reflect that new nickname.
Also, not for nothing, but the fact that they put the Doug Ireland plaque at like 3 feet off the ground was one of the best. Oh, there we go. We got a little short people there to little Randy Newman for you. J-Mac, you're the best, man. Looking forward to when we all finally can get back on campus and hang out again. And please stay safe out there, brother.
Absolutely. Y'all do the same. Thanks for having me on. And as always, welcome Demon.
There you go. Josh McDaniel, Director of Marketing and Social Media for Northwestern State.